ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः दिवि भूमौ तथाकाशे बहिरन्तश्च मे विभुः यो विभात्यवभासात्मा तस्मै सर्वात्मने नमः. Namaste to everyone. After a gap of 21 days, 3 weeks, we are resuming this Yoga Vasistha Satsang, which happens on every Tuesday. Hopefully, in the coming weeks again that we continue with this particular program of Yoga Vasistha. A lot of people were inquiring, when will we start again? When will we resume? Due to various reasons, I could not pick it up, but then I'm thankful to all those who showed interest in this Yoga Vasistha. We have taken up the text of essence of Yoga Vasistha, and then we are trying to work on that, the sutras, and then probably that it's God willing that we had this gap for 3 weeks, because this week, today's class, we are getting into a new fresh chapter and new fresh story, one of the most popular stories of Yoga Vasistha. In fact, many times people think that Yoga Vasistha means the discussion that goes on between Choodala and Shikidwaja. The king Shikidwaja and then his wife Choodala, exemplary characters in this Yoga Vasistha. And on one side, that when Bhushundu has carried such a great aura around Yoga Vasistha with the ideas of prana, and then how he has connected it with the uh, creation itself and how the creation manages the whole thing. Very beautifully he covered, and then we have also completed that Bhushundu, followed by whatever that Krishna has taught in the form of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. An excerpts from that Bhagavad Gita shlokas were there in the Arjuna Upakhyanam, and then we completed that, followed by the Bhagirath, because Bhagirath is one of the lineages of Krishna, Rama's ancient king, and then illustration of Bhagirath becomes very useful for Rama in his pursuit for Dharma. Because the way that Bhagirath, most important thing about Bhagirath's character is the relentless pursuit that he has done. In spite of the fact that he has an innumerable number of obstacles that were there, he continued and then achieved to bring Ganga onto the earth. And today we have Ganga on the earth. It is because of the grace of Bhagirath. In fact, many times people refer to this Bhagirath where somebody has done a very relentless kind of a pursuit. That's why they say that it was a Bhagirath Prayatna, and especially getting a water. And one of the very early recognition of this particular thing was when there was no water in Karnataka. The Kaveri river was flowing, and the other Kali river, whatever that was there in the corners and all that. Supposed to be Karnataka is with a lot of rivers, but in spite of it, we did had a problem with that. At that point of time, Mokshagundam Vishweswaraya, one of the greatest engineers India has produced, a lot of stories about him are there. Very nice, very interesting kind of a thing. With all those things, that he was the person who said that we should have this Kanambadi Dam, and then from there we have to do this, and we also produce electricity through this Jog waterfalls, all these things that he has given. But then when he came to the point of building this Kanambadi Dam and then bringing water to Mysore and Bangalore and all that, They didn't have money. And with a begging bowl, the king of Mysore those days, Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vadiyar, he went out to say that he wanted to get money. He went to the businessman. I heard this story. In fact, Narvali Krishnaraja Vadiyar is somebody who has done so many such things. A list of 100 things were listed, what he has done to Bangalore and Mysore, over the whole of Karnataka. And he was an extraordinary, wonderful king. And he was a person who didn't have money for this. And then that point of time, he said that all the jewelry that are there with Maharani, that he would like to pledge them and get the money so that he would build the dam. And with the dam, that he would get the fields, the crops coming up, and the crops he will sell, and then he will recollect that gold that he has pledged. And for that, the support was the wonderful idea given by Mokshagandha Vishvesvaraya, M. Vishvesvaraya, and extraordinary service by them. Vishvesvaraya was his divan, though he was an engineer. So all these things show that finally, with great effort that they could bring Kaveri to help the Karnataka people. So that's why this particular project, they call it as Bhagiratha Prayatna. That means to say almost like an impossible thing. From that he has brought about, like the way Bhagiratha has done. So Vasistha tells Rama basically the story of Bhagiratha in the previous chapter, where the whole effort is because that in the future, probably it may be that with the idea that in the future, Rama's work will be something like that. And yes, we could imagine now, after the whole Ramayana is over, now we know that what is the amount of effort that to accomplish the mission that Rama has undertaken, how many hardships that he has to go through. And then it started from the time that his father gave birth to his stepmother. From then onwards, Rama's relentless, continuous effort is the one which can re-establish the dharma that has happened. If Rama would not have re-established dharma, imagine that what would have happened to this particular culture. The same way Krishna has come and re-established dharma, we need to see that dharma has been re-established, is held high, and for that reason, that fighting the war with the cruel Ravan, and also with the Kauravas who are soaked in adharma and all those things were necessary. It's like the way that we need to do the surgical work. Therefore, that surgical work is not something which is against dharma. It is supposed to be something which can fulfill that dharma. And this is the reason why that we have this chapter of Bhagiratha Prayatna or Bhagiratha chapter, and then that we have described. Now we have come to the next level. This is what is called as the Choodala Upakhyanam, or the story of Choodala, the glory of Choodala. This is the 25th chapter of this Yoga Vasistha text that we have taken up. The story goes like this. There was a king by name Choodala, extraordinary, wonderful king. And then he was a king from the Malwa Desha, supposed to be Madhya Pradesh kind of an area, upper part of Madhya Pradesh. And then he was such a beautiful king, full with qualities and capacities and all those things. And then he married the girl from Maharashtra Desha, which is supposed to be Maharashtra these days. And then the lady was Choodala. And the way that he puts it so beautifully is that Choodala was his pratima. That means to say his mirror image, or his image together. And so beautiful, so intellectual. And more important thing is both of them very deeply connected with the ideological level, deep inside the mind. So what else do you want in a wonderful, smooth family to have something like that? A husband and wife having absolutely total identical thinking and beautiful kingdom and the nice, wonderful environment. And then the things are going on. See, this is a very important aspect of it, that things are fine, things are good, everything is fine, but there is one thing that you cannot stop in this process. And that what you can stop, we cannot stop, is the time. Time has to continuously roll. And the time was rolling. As the time was rolling, whatever that was there in the beginning slowly started showing up, showing, giving to them the idea that look, this is not what it is life, because what happens is that whatever might happen, the time has to take us away, and then one day that we will go away, we will not be on this earth. So what is that we have achieved? So this question has come up to Choodala and Shikitvaja, both of them, that they got this idea. So therefore, what happens is that look, we are just whatever that is there, we are enjoying it, then proceeding further. But in the process that we are doing, yes, you are hungry and then you get food and then hunger is taken care of. You feel tired, you go to sleep, and the sleep happens, and then you get up fresh. So these are all the things that are going on. It looks like that hunger and sleep, hunger, food and hunger, they're the solution. Similarly, sleep is a solution for the tiredness. So it looks like that these two are connected, and that's what is the life that we are continuing. But when this is going on, there is one thing which is behind all those things, which is unstoppable, which cannot be changed, which cannot be reversed, and that's what is the time. So therefore, they come to a level where, after several years, they suddenly realize that the way that you take the water in the palm, the water slips from the palm, and the same way that mm, a pot which has got small little holes where water is just only seeping out, even that pot can become empty over a period of time. So the life is going to become away, life is going to go away from this body, and then you become empty. And this is what is the way that Shikidvaya and Choodala they realized. After all, they are brilliant people. Many think that everything is fine. What is wrong about it? What is something wrong? Whereas Rama's, when you see that Shikidvaja's point that he has given, the same thing kind of thing that happened in the case of Rama. Shikidvaja, it happened later, but then Rama finds that himself, that he doesn't have the purpose of living, unless until he finds a purpose of living, there is no point in continuing like that at a very early age. It was hardly 17 years, and then that is the time that he got this doubt. What happened in the Shikidvaja at a later time. Therefore, this particular story of Shikidvaja and Choodala is something which is very similar to whatever that Rama's situation was there. And that's what Vasistha shares with Rama. Asi Shikidvajo Raja Malavanam Pure Pura Choodala Khyata Tat Patni Surashtraadipate Suma Suta. That means to say this Surashtra is Saurashtra, is upper part of uh, Maharashtra, that is what is Gujarat, aspect of it, Saurashtra. And from there, that she comes. Avardhatatayo pritihi anyonyarpita chetasaha evam bahushu varsheshu yateshu takramat tatayo shanaihi galati tarudhye भिन्न कुंभात इवाम्भसि आत्मनो ज्ञानमेव स्यात् संसार व्याधि भेषजम इति निश्चित्यतो आस्था तन्निष्ठो तत्परायणो. The love between them, who had set their hearts upon one another, grew. Thus, when they, in fact, the more and more that they live together, actually the love between them has grown, has multiplied. They become so close to each other. Generally, in the marriages, what happens until after the marriage? Initially, that they are together. Afterwards, slowly, that you start seeing the differences. You start becoming separate. In the sense that even at the mind level. But then here it is in this case that tayoho pritihi. That means to say that it is the love anyonyarpita chetasaha. It has grown to a level where that their whole being has been completely surrendered to the other. Anyonya arpita chetasaha evam bahushu varsheshu yate. For several years that they continued. Chakramatayoho shanaihi galate tarunye bhinna kumbhati vambhasi. However much that they are very capable and everything that was there, but you see that yavanatva, that means to say tarunatva, the young days that they started going away, like the way that bhinna kumbhat imambhasi, the water that is there in the pot slowly seeps out. However, in fact, the greatness of the pot is that it has those holes, the water seeps. Why it's important is that the water that seeps and wets the surface of the pot keeps the water cool. That's why if you taste it, if you take the water from the pot is much more cooler and much more tastier compared to the normal water you store otherwise. एवं बहुषु वर्षेषु याते चक्रमातयोः शनैः गलति तारुण्ये भिन्नकुम्भाति वाम्भसि आत्मनो ज्ञानमेव स्यात् संसार व्याधिभेजनम्. Very passed by. In the course of time, their youth was slowly vanishing like the water from the book. Having determined that only knowledge of the self can be a medicine for the disease of worldly existence, Atmano jnanameva syat samsara vyadhi bhejanam. Samsara itself is a vyadhi. We slip from the life towards the death. That's what is the idea of vyadhi. We are slipping from the life towards the death. Every day that passes, earlier there used to be a calendar which has got those leaves, and then every day passes that you just remove that leaf. And that's what is happening with our life. Every day is already spent a day that you are one day less now. So therefore, Atmano Jnanameva Syat Samsara Vyadhi Bhejanam. So samsara is the vyadhi. Does not mean that there is something like some sickness or anything like that. Samsara itself is vyadhi. That means in this life, when you are there, you are going towards the death every moment. That's why it is supposed to be vyadhi, and you cannot avoid it. Vyadhi, and for that, what is the solution? Even what is the bheshajam? What is the medicine for that? He says, Atmano jnanameva syat. Atma jnana is the something which is supposed to be the solution for that. So, in fact, later on also the discussion continues. But this is something, why he says that Atma jnana is a solution for that? Right up to the intellect, which is the highest capacity that we have in this creation, in this body, mind, intellect, conscious complex, that whole thing that is there, out of which everything is the one which is passing through this particular journey towards the death. From the life towards the death, this journey is going on. The body is dying. Every moment you see that the cells are dying, and then the dead cells, that they are all like a waste that you throw them away. New cells are taking birth. But this is continuously the journey that's going on at the body level. Same thing about the intellect, about the thought. Ignorance is there, you remove the self of knowledge, and all those things are, everything is now going away, and then something new is coming. So this journey of going towards the death is continuously which is going on. And this, whereas there is one aspect that's there within us which does not undergo this particular change, and that's what is you, that's what is I. I was there as a child, I was there as an adolescent, and I was there as an adult, etc., etc. That this I continues, even though that all these things have changed. You might not remember anything at that point of time when you were a child, but then you were there as a child. Your memory may not be there. In fact, childhood days picture that somebody shows to you and says that is it you? You wonder, where is that picture from? And when was it taken for me? And all that was there is something that you forget about it. You do not care. But then you continue with that. That continue what you are is supposed to be Atma. Here, Atma does not mean something which is esoteric or something like that. Atma means you. Atma means I. From grammar point of view, we say that Atma is myself. So yourself is somebody who is continuing behind all those things. We know that. We know very clearly our experiences that I'm continuing with all these things. I was a youth, at least I remember what all the things that were there. I'm an adult, but before that I was a child. I remember a lot of things that the journey that I make through. That means to say I was continuously behind it. I, and I was identified with all those states. When I was a child, I was totally a child. And then I was a youth, I was totally youth. Adolescent, I was totally adolescent. So we passed through this particular journey, but then behind all those things is I am there behind all those things, and then that you cannot replace it. Another thing is that never undergoes any change or death. The body undergoes change, all the sensory organs undergo, the mind, intellect, whatever that you say undergoes the change. But then I do not change, and that's why I is something which is permanent, which does not undergo this particular change. That he says, Atmano Jnanameva. So, but then this I, do we really know it? We say that yes, I was young and I'm old and all those things that I say, but then you are only referring to that I, which is behind all these things that changes that are correct. That's a wonderful thing that at least that much that knowledge that you get into that idea, saying that yes, you are continuing behind all those things. There must be something behind all. So that is what you are. Now look at the way that Yoga Vasistha puts it. He doesn't mystify anything. In fact, on the other side, he removes all the mystification that were there shrouded around all the religions, particularly Hinduism. A lot of people they mystify the whole concept of Atman. Says we have an Atman and there is something which is there and blah blah blah, all kinds of things that they try to create a picture of it. But then he says very clearly that it is that which continues with that. That's what is Atman, and that Atman is supposed to be you. Therefore, Atmano Jnanamevaite Syat, Jnanameva Syat, Samsara Vyadibhejanam. So that what happens is that when I hold on to that, I see that whatever that is undergoing change is undergoing change in front of my eyes. And then I am there not touched by all this change. That itself is mukti or moksha, that itself is a freedom. Yes, I accepted some change has to happen in the world outside because that's what is the nature of the creation itself. Change is the nature of the creation. So I accepted the change. Atmano jnaname vaishat samsara vyadi bhejanam iti nishityatau astha tanishtau tatparayana. In this culture, look at this. Thousands of years, this culture very clearly has seen that it is not like a religion, but at a Sanatana Dharma is something that you need to experience it. You need to find it out. You need to establish yourself in that. Consciousness, you become that. And then body and all other things are outside of it. Intellect, such an extraordinary, wonderful tool, but then it's only a tool, but you are somebody behind it. When they denied the identification with the intellect, identification with the mind, and in the world outside, they did not actually reject the world. They say that you are not that, you are somebody behind it. You are somebody who is making these things possible, making these things shine. So therefore, that you are that Atman behind there, all these things. Try to experience that Atman. Atman is not something that is theoretically established, but it has to be experienced. Great people are great that they have that experience, and from that experience that they have taught. When Upanishad says, I am Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, it is not a statement that he is trying to give for you to analyze, for you to put the logic and argument and all those things. From we can create various philosophies behind it. But then Rishi, actually, when he says that Aham Brahmasmi, it's his experiences he's sharing. That I'm Atma, my Atman, I'm the Atman, and that's what is Brahman. That's what his experience he's sharing. Athasaviratam Rama, Shastrartha Manane Rata, Itham Vicharayamasa, Tvamatmanam, Aharnisham. Rama then engaged in reflection on this meaning or the purpose of scriptures uninterrupted. So you see, what has to happen is that this vimukata, that reality of the creative world outside, has to be seen. Once that is seen, then the vimukata, then the turning inwards happens so naturally, because that's the only place where you can search. We have searched enough outside. Now we turned inwards. If we have not enough searched outside, we still go out in search of it. Go out in search of your freedom, search of your consciousness, your Atman, etc., etc. You go into the world outside. Every time that you go to the world outside, you see that the world outside satisfies you, but then that satisfaction is momentary. So it makes you to touch your nature called satisfaction, but that still does not stay with you. Sooner or later, that you lose that, you again go to that. So this is uh, Rishi's experiences that I am that Atman. It is not that for the sake of somebody else he's saying. It's his own nature. That's what he's sharing with that. In fact, in the Taittiriya Upanishad also, Rishi says, how, ahamanna, mahamanna, mahamanna. When he says that expression, how is, wow, what a wonder it is that I am everything in this world, in this universe. I become that, I am behind that. So that experience that Rishi has it. So once that Rishi has it, averitam Rama, Shastrartha manate, Shastrartham manane rata. If somebody has that experience, why not we also have that experience? In this culture, always we had this experience in this world, in this body. This culture did not provide the idea of somewhere in the heaven, somewhere in the hell. And then you do something here that God punishes you. There is somebody sitting there giving you punishment or giving you rewarding you with the heaven, as if they are spatially somewhere else. They are supposed to be some various other worlds. And then they also created so many other intermediate worlds also. But all these things are mystified. Has anybody seen? Is there any purpose of that? No purpose. Whether it is a rich person goes through the death, or a poor person goes through the death, ultimately that both of them have to die. And then they say that yes, if the rich has been compassionate, then he will go to the heaven. Whereas if he is cruel, then he go to the hell. So like that, heaven and hell, that they are created for relative purposes. Otherwise, it's not really that. So therefore, that in this culture, it is not that you are going somewhere else. In the other cultures, yes, after the death, you go to some place, and then there are so many things that are offered. But once again, your own imagination is what? It is limited. Whatever your experience with the limited world here, your imagination also extended to that limited world again you create. Here also that you enjoy the company of opposite sex. There also you enjoy opposite sex. But then there it is multiplied. That's the only thing. But otherwise that's heaven. Similarly, whatever that you suffer here, multiplied, that is what is hell there. That's why somebody very nicely said, heaven is created for yourself. Hell you create for the sake of others. You want to put them into the hell. So this is how the whole picturization is your own mind that has created. And we have several religions, several faiths. They created their own model for that. Whereas it's only the Indian philosophy, it's only Sanatana Dharma which says that you have a purpose here itself. And what is that purpose? It says that Itham vicharayamasa swam atmanam aharnisham. This is what they are thinking day and night. How can we become one with that Atmasthiti that's there within us? I recognize that I am not with the world outside. I'm not identifying with the world outside. Kasyaham, then what happens is that what is that which took me outside? Why did I come out? Why did I get identified with the world outside? Why did I forget my nature? Deep inside, whatever that is there in the form of peace, harmony. Why did I lose that nature? So that's why this question comes up. Kasyayam agato mohaha katham abhyutitam kova dehastavatu jade mudho nahamityeva nishchayaha. कर्मेन्द्रिय कर्मेन्द्रिय गणश्वास बुद्धिन्द्रिय गणः तथा जडयेव भवेत् नूनं प्रेर्यते मनसा यतः. To whom has this illusion occurred? Who has been gone through this particular illusion, diffusion, delusion, and how has this arisen? From where? And first, it is certain that the body, which is dull and stupid, is not at all I. This group of organs of action, mouth, hands, etc., and the organs of perception, eyes, ears, tongue, etc., all these things can only be dull so surely, since they are moved or prompted by the mind. So one who starts looking at this, probably that they could see that when a dead body, this is what is the way that Buddha, in the case of Siddhartha also it happened, he saw the dead body. And then Chinna said that yes, everybody has to die. That means to say the body itself is dead, minus the consciousness that's there behind it. This body itself is like a dead matter. So, but the body looks to be alive because that there is life that it borrows from the consciousness. That's why we see this body alive. But then unfortunately what happens that if the others see that you are this body, fine, that's okay. Because that they cannot see anything which is there behind other than what is there outside. But then how can you see that you are this body? Can you not feel yourself that this body is separate and I am separate? I am somebody behind this body and I shine this body. This body looks to be live, vibrant, intelligent, and all those things. It's because of the presence of the consciousness behind it. And we are that consciousness. So this, and you see that, and in fact, it's not very difficult for us to find out because we say that my body, my hand, my leg very clearly shows that this is an instrument in my hand with me. And then I'm behind that. That's why we say my, like way we say that my pen, my musical instrument, my this, my that. All these things are objects that I possess. The same way, this object is something that you possess. So in the first place, that the realization that comes about is this karmendriyas. Karmendriya ganas chaso, to whom this delusion occurred. How has this arisen and where? First, it is certain that the body, which itself is jada eva bhavet. Jada, basically, here is given as the jada means it is the dull and stupid. Now, I don't contribute towards that. Jada means that these are the two things that are there in this creation. One is called as Jada and the other is Chetana. Jada is the property which does not have any movement, any development, any change, anything like that. It is free from all those things. That's what is supposed to be the Jada. Jadatva, that means to say that you don't want any change, you don't want any movement, you don't want anything to happen. That's what is the idea of Jadatva. Whereas Chetana is something which is constantly moving, they're constantly alive. And a stone which by itself does not move. So therefore, the stone is supposed to be Jada. Wherever you keep it, the stone will be there, unless until something pushes it out. Otherwise, the stone remains as the same. But then it is not the same thing where that you can find the Chetana is there. Chetana is something where the growth takes place, movement takes place. Like the way in the plant, you say that the plant has life, Chetana. Our Chetana is something which is making the plants alive. So this Chetana is there in the plant. What is the indication of that? The plant grows. By itself it grows. It wears more number of leaves and then branches and the fruits and the flowers and all those things that happen in the plant. Every day produces so many flowers. What an extraordinary, wonderful creation that takes place. So, therefore, this is what is supposed to be Chetana. But there also you see that there are two things which are blended there. One is called as the Jada, like the stone like aspect that is there. But then within that, the Chetana is there. This you can see in the case of a, when you want to plant a tree, a stub, you just get a small little cutting of it and then put it in the soil. At that point of time, the cutting doesn't have any leaf or anything like that. It is just a simple thing. But you say that it's still alive. That means to say there is life inside that. Therefore, you put it inside the soil and then wait for that. And then Chetana brings about that particular plant, comes out, bearing all these flowers and the fruits and all those things that grows. So, what is that which is growing? It is because of that Chetana that is there, but Chetana is reflected on the Jada. In the case of a plant, Chetana is reflected in the Jada, called as the body. In the case of, even the case of animals, the Chetana is something which is reflected on the body. Otherwise, body itself does not move. But then because Chetana is there, that's why the animals move. Locomotion is given. And the same thing at the human being level, when we go to that, it is the same thing which is a Chetana, which makes the human being to think, organize, etc., which the animals cannot do it, which the plants cannot do it. So therefore, that is the manifestation of this multiple ways and million ways that it manifests on earth. In fact, somebody was saying that the kind of an activity that we do, the amount of energy that is required and the direction and the calculation, all those things going on inside, it's large computer that we have. That's what is working. That's what is our buddhi indriya. So therefore, basically he says that karmendriyani ashvasau buddhindriya ganam taha jadayeva bhavet nunam preryate manasayataha. So they are all jada, but it is behind that the mind that is there is the one which makes it to become active, which appears to be like they are living. Very strange idea. It is strange revelation that he brings about. And then he says, Manopyeya jadam yasyat preryate buddhi nishchayehi buddhischyapi jada yasmat ahankarena chalyate ahankaro jado nunam jivena janyate yataha. Now, slowly, steadily, he's understanding, he's coming to that idea where he says that, yeah, senses seem to be running towards the object, and that's what our equation stops. That's where that our equation stops. Yes, senses are there, object is there, that we are doing. And now this object is gone, that we get another object. If the sense is gone, that you try to fix that senses with the help of only external means. Every time that what we do is to see that how we can reassure ourselves that we are the body, we are the senses, and the objective world is there. This is what we are. Even at the time of death, we still have a hope that I can still live for one more day. I can still see one more business, one more activity. So again, the whole Chetana activity is only turned outwards. And it has already gone outwards. In fact, by the time it identifies with the sensory organ itself, it has gone outside. It's not turned inwards. If the sensory organ works only for the sake of working, a stimulus and response, but then you are freed from that, that is what basically the sadhana starts. So, but then he still feels that everything is there. Manopyeti jadam yasyat preryate buddhi nishchayehi buddhischyapi jada yasmat. Now, what is that which provokes this particular activity at the sensory organ level, at the mind level? So the picture is that senses are the one which is interacting with the world outside. And the senses are the persons, senses are them. Behind him, it is the mind, which is basically connected with the senses. So it is the mind which guides the senses. The senses themselves do not have any reality. It is and they are jada. Whereas the mind is the one which guides them. through the prana. See this, open that, and take it out and go this way. All these things are the mind giving instructions. Now, therefore, that what happens is that buddhi and buddhist chapi jada, this what is buddhi giving us. But then buddhi itself is jada. Buddhi itself does not have any chetana because the buddhi is something which is guided by me. I can use my buddhi. I can also educate somebody else and then he chooses his buddhi to change. It's not that I am the changing this. And this is something which we need to really carefully understand in the path of yoga. That is, that when I'm giving instructions in yoga to say that relax your body, take a deep breath and all those things, it's not my instructions which is working on somebody. Actually, my instructions are being repeated by somebody in his own mind. If he does not repeat, then his mind is somewhere else, then it does not have that effect. Therefore, that he repeats. It's I cannot cast any impression on you, on your body, but only that this is instruction that is given by your mind, your sankalpa. From there, when it comes to you, it makes sense to you. In fact, if you carefully watch next time when you are doing yoga, you see that whatever the instruction teacher gives, you are always repeating in your mind. And that what you repeat in your mind is working with you. That is very important that you repeat these instructions. So therefore, that you can really feel that activity that's going on in such a way that behind the activity that there is consciousness. So it is the buddhirhi jada yasmat, and I am doing it. This is what is ahankara. Ahankarena va chalyate. Buddhi is also working because of ahankara. If ahankara were not to be there, egotism is not there. Where is the question of buddhi working? So therefore, it is the ahankara which is supposed to be giving the direction towards this buddhi. So therefore, ahankara is the one which is very important. But then what is the very important thing that you can think of it is this ahankara, what is so important is something, uh, when you look at what is the ahankara is made out of all the ingredients that are there in the world outside. I have this ahankara because that I'm a teacher. But the teacher where? The teacher in the world outside. I'm beautiful. Beautiful where? It is in the eyes of the people that are there outside. I'm somebody who is intelligent. Intelligent in what sense? In the way that I can guide the people. People would look up for me as intelligent. So therefore, all these things that are about the world outside, we shine by that. That's what is ahankara. Ahankara is always connected with the world outside. Now this question comes up very strongly that can I live without this ahankara? Ahankara is absolutely necessary. No, it's not necessary in this world to be without the ahankara. You look at the nature outside, there is no ahankara at all, activity is going on. Rivers are there flowing, mountains are there, and breeze comes and all that. Where is the ego? There is no ego at all. There is a natural process. And that's what is going on in the world outside. So when you look at that, then this is what is the next thing. That's what is Buddhishchapi jada yasmat ahankarena chalyate. Now this ahankaro jado nunam jivena janyate janyate yataha. This is where even the ahankara is supposed to be jada. What a beautiful statement it is. Even the ahankara is all jada because ahankara is about the vastu that is there in the world outside. That vastu is supposed to be jada. That vastu is not chetana. Chetana is behind that vastu. And then you put that chetana behind that vastu, so therefore it becomes whatever it is. So therefore, what happens is that ahankaro jado nunam jivena janyate yataha. This ahankara is behind all those things, but ahankara itself is something which is jada. I can have an ahankara because based on my previous experiences, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that great, and all those things. I say that all those things are there. But are they the things which are really what is the reality that is there? No. Even those things are also powered because of this ego behind it, is the Chaitanya behind it. That's why he says that ahankaro jado nunam jivena janmate yataha. It is the jiva is created by the Brahman. It is that which is behind this thing. Individuation has taken place from the individual. Now, individual experiences, individual ideas, individual things like that. Nobody can pass on the realization to you. Temporarily, yes, somebody can give an effect of that, but then nobody can pass on that realization. It has to happen within yourself. Your 100% participation has to give that realization. This is what is the way that Indian philosophy, Sanatana Dharma, has always given. This is what is spiritual end. This is what is the spiritual end. All the other things are supposed to be support for these things, are the help for these things. So, as a help that I have, the other gods and all those things, fine. But most important thing is that you need to go to that state of giving up this ahankara. That is what has to happen. Ahankaro jado nunam jivena janyate yataha jivascha kalanakaraha kerapyanteshu jivitaha. The individual soul, which is in the form of comprehension of cognition, subsists on just one difference. It is known that the divided, that individual soul subsists only in pure consciousness. This is what is the catch phrase this week, and that is Ayam Jeevaha Aho Jnanam. This Aho is an expression of exclamation, it's an experience. So Vasistha says to Rama as an experience, Aho Jnatam Ayam Jeevaha Chidrupenaiva jeevathi. Even the jiva that is there, jeevati, it lives because of Chidrupenaiva, because of the consciousness behind it. So I can consider myself to be the jiva, but I can transcend that to become one with the consciousness itself. So jivascha kalanakaraha kenapyatyena jivati aho jnatam ayam jivava chidrupenaiva jivita jivati. Oh, it's known. This individual soul admits only on pure consciousness. If you have to create any impression on any living being, that you can only create in the pure consciousness. Now, what happens is that if I realize that I'm the pure consciousness, if I can feel that I'm accepting this load and then doing the work, so that means to say that I am that consciousness, and this world is there, the material is there. It may be there or may not be there because this has the property of going away. But then I am going to continue. Life after life, I will be there. This is something which is extraordinary, and that's what we are looking for. Idanim punarikshigam kenevachit prachetyate ahono chirakalena jnatam jnaya anamayam. So individual soul, which is the form of comprehension or cognition, subsists on some one different. Oh, it is known this individual soul subsists only on pure consciousness. It subsists only on pure consciousness. It's a very beautiful example that's given by Mr. Gaudamayana. He says that he asked that question. Anna asked the question to Finn, the author, says that how do you see the things? See, because that the things are there, therefore I see. Very simple, primitive answer that teacher, the Finn gives, and then Anna does not get satisfied with that. He says, no. Just because things are there, therefore you see? He said, yes. But then things are there in the night, you don't see them. Yeah. Reality is that things are there in the night, but you don't see them. Why? He says that in the night that there is no light. Yeah, under the light you see the things. In the daytime that you see, because the sunlight is there, sunlight falls on that. And then we see that. See, now subtle way that Anna leads him. So therefore you are seeing the sunlight, not the object. Yeah, I mean, take it that way. So object is seen because the sunlight is reflected on the object. So that means that you are seeing sunlight. Yes, you are seeing the sunlight. But then same sun that you are seeing, the same sunlight that you are seeing on the object, why the red light, why the car looks red, why the curtain looks green, why the pastures look green, why the flowers look yellow? Because it's all the same sunlight. See how subtly that she takes the question. And then he says that, yeah, sunlight has all these colors. And therefore, when it falls on this car, it reflects red light, falls on the flowers, it reflects yellow light. Therefore, you see that. But ultimately, that you are seeing the same sun. The colors are not there in the object. The shining is not there in the object. The life is there, not in the object. But it is the sunlight which makes them to see. So therefore, it is the sunlight that you are seeing. The same thing that happens with us is that my hand looks live, my legs look live, I am alive. It's because basically it is the consciousness which is reflecting on my system. Not only these things, even in the mind, my intellect, my these things, all those things are becoming functional because one behind that is that consciousness. Idanim punariksheham kenai shachit prachichate aho charakalena jnatam yayam anamayam. I shall now see and reflect again by whom this pure consciousness is comprehended or perceived. Oh, after a long time indeed, that which is free from blemish and fit to be known has been known by me. See, this is what is the experience of uh, Choodala, that I am now identifying myself with the consciousness, and I see that everything is nothing but this reflection of consciousness that I'm seeing. I shall now see the reflect again by whom this pure consciousness is comprehended and pursued. Oh, after a long time indeed, that which is free from blemish and fit to be known is known to be. It's very beautifully said because the free from blemish is a very simple idea. That sunlight reflects on the dirty pond, a pure water pond, it reflects wonderfully. The same way, dirty pond also it reflects perfectly the same sunlight. It does not matter for the sunlight whether it is a clean pond or a dirty pond, whether it is a clean object or a dirty object, or whether he is a person who is supposed to be intelligent or a dull. So everybody, whatever that happens, is nothing but the same consciousness, same pure consciousness that reflects. And somebody it reflects in the form of intelligence, and somebody it reflects in the form of dullness. How does it matter? Both these things are same pure consciousness that is there. And I realized that I am that pure consciousness. And when I realize that I am the pure consciousness, I see that same pure consciousness there in the world outside. Ete hi chid vilasantaha manobuddhirindriyataha asantaha sarvayeveho avadhanam vinotyataha. Sure, these entire beginning with the organs of senses, mind and intellect, and ending with the flash of consciousness or the individual soul are all only non-existence and have arisen without attention. It is a wonder. When you experience that kind of an experience where that you are somebody behind as pure consciousness and all other things are jada, they don't have any life, but then this is something which is reflecting on them. I'm walking because that I'm the consciousness and the legs do not have the capacity to walk. It's the consciousness which is walking. Eyes are seeing. Eyes are only windows, and all the equipment that is there behind the eyes are also equipment. But then who is seeing ultimately? It is I who is seeing, the consciousness which is seeing. Once you give that, it's an extraordinary, wonderful revelation. It is a sense of wonder, vismaya. That's why he says it is the wonder, vinotitaha. Once you feel that you are being that witness behind all those things, you enjoy the world. World becomes like a leela. All the jadatva, on that all these things are manifesting. Don't we give that kind of a reality for jadatva? We also give that reality to jadatva. Like for example, you are playing the chess game, and then while playing the chess game, that there are wooden pieces that are there, and each wooden piece you give a identification with that, give a life to that, and therefore that there it is, a one particular thing has certain powers. You can only do that, otherwise it cannot do other things. So you limited the whole thing. You play. The same world is also like that. Everything is that the roles are there, roles, activities are there. Everything is going on the way that it is going on. But you realize that you are the consciousness, and this world is like the playground in front of you. You play with that very efficiently, like the way that in a drama, the actor becomes much more efficient than the original. That's why it is said that in Ram Leela, when the drama takes place at that time, Rama cried much more effectively than the original Rama in Ramayana. Why this idea? Because that you are not anyway affected by that, so that you enjoy the whole thing. This is what the indication that when you are in the state identified with pure consciousness, you are, the joy is yours. Joy in the world outside is yours. So, Mahachit Ekaivasthiha Nirhankara Rupini Sakrute Vibhata Vimala Nityodayavi Sada Sa Brahma Paramatmadi Namabhi Parikiyate. So now Shikitvaja, Choodala has this experience, and Shikitvaja watches Choodala. Now suddenly that she has become a totally different person. The one great pure consciousness alone exists here. It's of the nature of absence of, and now this ahankara, beyond that is the pure consciousness. That means to say, here not even the ego exists. Absence of ego, the stainless pure consciousness once manifested is always appearing in invariably. That's the only thing that is available. Sakrit Vibhata Vimala Nityodayavati Sada. Sada, that's what is something always. It is that which is appearing invariably. It is described by the names Brahman, Supreme Spirit, Paramatman, or the Supreme Self and the like. So this is what he says. But then, so day after day, Choodala investigated thus because of the state of delight in her own self and the rise of self knowledge on account of her intense practice of discrimination with her immense self or the heart filled with the great acquisition of the supreme self. She shone splendidly there with extraordinary beauty. Dinanan udinam ityesha swatmaramas tatha yatha swatmaramataya yatha परमात्मा महालाभ परिपूर्णांतरात्मनः सर्व विवेक घनाभ्यासा वशात आत्मोदयेन सा शुशुभे शोभिनं तत्र चूडालो आपूर्व शोभया. See, somebody who realized that, somebody who understands that is the Paramatma, that's what Supreme Self is that. What else is there? It becomes like a wonderful celebration every moment, day after day after day. Choodala got caught up in that. See, this is one thing that ultimately this journey towards the spirituality is one's own. One has to realize himself. And short of it, it's only just a theoretical knowledge. And this particular story gives us The difference between the theoretical knowledge and somebody who has received that, reached that. People who interact also that with them, they not only they see that there are certain changes in their way of activity, but behind that they see that it is something which is extraordinary, which is shining behind it. That Paramatman, that Brahman, Atmasthiti is something which is shining by that. That's what all the sages have said. That is what is the thing, incentive for the people to go towards spirituality. Otherwise, books give you the knowledge. But what is the knowledge for? Unless until it becomes your own experience inside. In fact, not only here, but in scriptures it is said that Narada reads all those things. Narada studies everything. That's what he comes to Sanat Kumars and complains, saying that I've read everything, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, everything, Gandharva Veda, this Upanishad, this, that, and all those things I read. But in spite of it, my suffering is not gone. That means to say I'm still not in the state of that celebration. All these things are fine, but then they are not converted into my experience. Such a huge gap between the knowledge and the experience. Particularly in the case of Brahman, the gap is so much. In ordinary case also that you see the gap is so much, like the way describe about mango, describe about the beauty of mango, taste of mango, all those things, and say king of the fruit and all those things and everything. But you see that all that knowledge that is there, there's such a big gap between that knowledge and actually experience of eating a mango. And that can only happen that when you go through that. Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. That's what the Upanishad Shastra says, that you can only become Brahman when you have that experience. And that's the only way that it can happen to you. And then Choodala has gone to that kind of an experience. That's why day after day after day that you see that she's more and more getting established into that, full of joy, full of activity, full of energy, wisdom, beauty, all those things are there. Filled with the great acquisition of Supreme Self, she shone splendidly there with extraordinary beauty. She became beautiful. She became very pleasant, very attractive. That's why it is an author says that very beautifully, says that beauty is the gift of God. It's a God manifestation. It's not belong to the world outside. It's not belong to the objective world outside. Beauty is the inside beauty of it. You can see that there are people who are really aged and all those things, but you can see the beauty on their face, and that beauty is unexplainable. They may not have money, they may not have this, they may not have all those things, name and fame and all that, but then beauty is there on them. So Choodala becoming more and more beautiful. Now this is what happens. The journey is individual. Chuda's journey is Choodala's, Shikadwa's journey is Shikadwaja. Until that time, you see, their ideas are very clear, matching. That's why he says that Pratima, that means she was like his own image. Shikadwaja found her. And during that time of life, when they have all these years, they live together, absolutely no difference between one ideas and the other ideas. They were just same ideas, two sides of the same coin. They were there like that. But look at what happened. When it comes to the individual inner journey, both of them very passionately went for the inward journey. But there, in spite of all these things, that Shikatwaja is still waiting, but Choodala has gone to that place. Extraordinary experience that he has. Therefore, now the question comes up, what is that reaction of Shikatwaja? How does he take it? How does he proceed further? And what is that the lesson that we learn in the case of this Choodala episode, the story of Choodala, the glory of Choodala? Let's continue it next week. Once again, my apologies for the last 3 weeks that we didn't have a class, but let's try to continue on this Yoga Vasistha. Namaste. Om Shanti. Shanti Shanti.